Welcome to another exciting and elucidating episode of the Omni Talk Ask an Expert series. I'm your host, Chris Walton.
And I'm Mezzenga.
And we are the founders of Omni Talk, the fast-growing retail blog that is all about the companies, the technologies, and the people that are coming together to shape the future of retail. Or as we like to say, Anne, the blog that focuses on tomorrow's companies today.
We do say that.
We do say that, don't we? Yes. And you can't be a blog, Anne, that focuses on omnichannel retailing without talking about the supply chain and, more importantly, the last mile. So joining us today is a veritable expert on that subject. And I am pleased to introduce to you Purolator's Senior Director of Retail, Laurie Weston. Laurie is here to talk about everything it takes to create a delivery network that operates within 3 miles of your customer at every turn. Laurie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chris. And it's so nice to be here. And what an intro. So I can't wait to talk about it.
Whew, met the grade on the intro. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, no, you are definitely a veritable expert on this subject. Probably one of the most person with the most expertise we've ever had on this show. And before we get started, I just want to make a call out to everyone that we're going to have a discussion with Laurie. So just a quick reminder for those watching the early release of this interview live on LinkedIn with us right now, feel free to ask your questions of Laurie or even Anne or myself, should the mood strike you, via the chat session window on the right-hand side of your screen. All right, Laurie, you ready to get started?
Ready more than ever, Chris. So yes.
Let's do it.
Well, Laurie, let's set the table here first. Can you tell us a little bit about what Purolator is and what you do there?
Yeah, so Purolator is an integrated freight, package, and logistics provider. And you know what's really interesting? I mean, we have an extensive network across Canada. And, you know, the interesting thing, Chris and Anne, a lot of people don't know about us is we've been around 60 plus years.
Right.
So, yeah, so 60 plus years, we have a huge reach in Canada. And so we're able to deliver to some of the most remote locations and deliver on our customers' promises. So we're Canadian owned, we've been here a long time, and we like to deliver packages.
And that's what I think. I'm glad you brought that up about remote too, because I think that's one thing the American audience doesn't understand about Canada. I know those who worked at Target and saw the Target experiment in Canada know full well. But I think for the rest of our listenership, explain what remote really means in terms of Canada. So, you know, trying to solve this question of how do you put a network within 3 miles of everyone in a remote geography like Canada is no easy feat. So explain the remoteness, if you will, Laurie, of Canada.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Chris, because Canada is so different than the US, of course. So, you know, the majority of the population live in a thin line across Canada, right, in major cities. But when you talk about remote, we're talking about Yukon in Whitehorse. We're talking about Northern Ontario, north of Thunder Bay. And a lot of these locations, what's interesting is it could be sunny here, but blizzard up north, right? So that's one thing to take into consideration when we're delivering to Canadians. So you've got the weather, the environment, but the distance, to your point. Right. So remote can be very, very remote.
Yeah, the weather too. I didn't even think about that, how the weather changes and plays into the remoteness that is under discussion. That's fascinating. Glad I asked that question.
It's really fascinating.
Well, Laurie, what kind of challenges does that provide? I mean, we can make some assumptions about weather-related challenges, but I mean, let's get a little bit deeper into, you know, what that means logistically for retailers. How are they getting goods in these days of promises of same-day delivery or next-day delivery to those people in those remote locations?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, Anne, because especially with the growth of e-commerce, this pandemic, definitely lots of more online shopping. And you know what we've also found? A lot of people that were living in cities have moved north, right? So our volume has changed. So we're moving, you know, we obviously still have those urban deliveries, but those rural and mid-market deliveries have definitely gone up. So we've got a massive fleet of trucks across Canada, couriers. I build a massive alternate network. And what that entails is allowing our customers in rural areas and urban markets, you know, we will try and deliver to their house, but if they're not home, we make sure that we have a location where they can pick up their package at a convenient time. So it's a lot to try and cover Canada coast to coast and get those packages delivered, but we do it every year.
So take a minute to explain your role then within that at Purolator and what you're charged with specifically in bringing that about.
Yeah, so I'm the Senior Director of Retail. What that entails is I oversee our corporate stores across Canada, and we have 104 of those stores. So those stores are operated by our employees. But we also, Chris, we have strategic partners. So anywhere a customer can pick up and drop off a package falls under my umbrella. Some of those partners, for example, which you may know, we're in every Michael's location across Canada. We've also partnered with Staples, so customers can go in and pick up and drop off there. We've partnered with Pudo, which is like a convenience store play. Okay. And also Metrolinx. I'm not sure if you've heard of Metrolinx, but they are a bus and go train service in the Greater Toronto area. And it's kind of a unique partnership because that's where people go and jump on the train, jump on the bus, and they can also pick up and drop off their package. But to add to that, what we've been really focused on the last few years is really kind of innovating the type of access our customers have. And so we've got our agent partners, we've got our corporate stores, but something else that we've added is a fleet of mobile trucks. So, and we have 29 mobile trucks. And what that is exactly is we've taken 29 of our old retired curbside vehicles, and we've turned them into what, I know this is interesting, what looks like a food truck, but it's actually a courier retail store on wheels. And what's interesting about this solution is that we can pop them up in the middle of peak, November and December, for customers to pick up and drop off packages. So that's one new thing we've done. Another thing we've added in the last couple of years is self-serve kiosks. So this is where our customers have, I mean, clearly they want contactless, they want to be able to do it on their own. So we've launched 39 self-serve kiosks across Canada where customers can pick up and drop off. And last but not least, I promise, Chris, I'm almost over. We've launched parcel lockers. So we've partnered with Quadient, and we've got lockers across Canada. So
you mentioned lockers, Laurie. Like, tell us a little bit about that particular outlet and what you're seeing in terms of how customers are kind of adopting or adapting to lockers as the solution for them. That's contactless, that's quick, that's easy, all those things that you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's interesting because lockers obviously have been around a long time. They're really starting to sprout up here in Canada. I'm very favorable to lockers. I think number one, to your point, it's low contact, low touch. Customers can interact with them. But what's the strategy that we're moving towards is a 24/7 access, really driving the flexibility and the convenience for the customer. So the lockers that we have installed are outside. So, and what's interesting is we're finding 11% of our customers are going to pick up after hours.
Wow.
So it's showing that they do want to go at 10 o'clock at night. They do want to go in at 5 o'clock in the morning to pick up their packages. So, and we have 23, and we're launching more this year. But what's interesting also about the parcel lockers, in order for it to be really successful for us, we have to have a high occupancy rate. And what that means is we want the lockers filled with freight, right? We want as much packages in there as possible. And right now we're currently sitting at 78% occupancy rate, which is pretty high. So I'm pretty pleased with that.
Got it.
And Laurie, what's the like, how does that work out from like the location of these lockers? Where are they? I mean, you mentioned that you have partnerships with Michael's, with Staples. What kind of goes into the decision-making process when you're trying to get these parcels closer to consumers?
Yeah, that's a really
determining where to put them.
Yeah. So, you know what's interesting about our strategy? So when we decided to roll out some lockers, the first thing we did was actually roll them out outside of our corporate. And there's a couple of reasons why I did that. One, it's a very controlled environment. So first, we're offering 24/7 to those customers that are going to our location today to pick up. But we've also been able to work on the employee adoption rate. How are the employees interacting with the parcel locker? I mean, at the end of the day, you can roll out as many of these as you want, but if the courier's employees are not able to interact with the locker in a very seamless way, it's only as good as the people using the technology. Right. We first started with that, rolling it out, and it's huge success for us for a couple of reasons. One, When they're attached to our store, it really increases our capacity during peak times, right? So less freight in behind the counter, less reduced lineups, greater customer satisfaction. They can come and go. They don't have to go into the store. Some people are nervous with that, with COVID and so forth. So that's what we started. Next, we're going off property. So where we decide to put these lockers in is a couple of reasons. One, where's the market gap? So when we talk about wanting to get within 3 kilometers of a Canadian, where are our current market gaps? And that's how we're going to start filling those gaps. We've got one going live at our GO station here in Brampton, Greater Toronto area, off property. So we can see how customers interact. But that's the strategy moving forward. Market gaps, fill it with lockers, or some of our other solutions as well.
So Laurie, just to play that back for everyone listening then. So basically what you said in the opening, you said, you've got this whole basically superstructure of pickup points, or collection points throughout Canada. It sounds like most of which are, say, partner access points, for lack of a better way to describe them, places like Michael's, like you mentioned. But you're seeing, I think it's important to double click into, you're seeing the need then, or the demand for 24/7 access.
Yes.
By way of lockers particularly, and them being able to service this. That's a correct summary of what you just described?
Bang on, exactly. And the corporate stores, Chris, that we're building right now, we've got quite a few coming up this year. We're building it so it has a 24/7 vestibule.
Really?
So customers, exactly, yep. So they can go in. We've got our parcel lockers, but we also have our kiosk where they can induct their parcel, create a shipment, and you can go in at midnight if you want, pay by debit and credit, create the label, and you can drop it off. So I really believe that's the way. The more 24/7 access we can provide to our customers, the more strategic and competitive, quite frankly, at the end of the day.
And it sounds like for the most part, you're putting this, for lack of a better way, where people work, live, and play, like the high density urban environments right now too, right?
You got it.
Yeah. So my question then, for you then is, do you think that's all or the only place for this locker opportunity, or where do you see because again, remote locations like we opened in the beginning, do you see that there's a rural opportunity for lockers as well? Oh, you do? Okay.
I do.
I'm curious. Talk about that.
What I love doing, honestly, in my job, and I'm so lucky, is test and pilot. So I do agree with you, Chris. I think there's a huge opportunity for some remote areas to put a parcel locker where customers maybe have to drive a bit further to go pick up a package. Now they can only drive, maybe it takes 5 minutes to go and pick up a parcel. It's really going to depend on the volume going to these remote locations, Chris. That's really what would be the deciding factor. So definitely rural. I think we're definitely going to be testing that out this year.
That's interesting. And what are some of the volume indices or indicators that would make one want to put a locker in a more rural setting, for example?
So there's a couple of things we look at. So the locker's designed right now for people to come and pick up a package. So one of the indices we look at is the total number of packages, let's call it missed delivery. So sometimes people are expecting maybe it's an iPhone or an item of high value. You can't leave it on the doorstep, or it's a condo, or whatever that reason may be. That's going to go back into the parcel locker. So Chris, you'll get a text notification. You can now pick up your package. So the missed deliveries is one key metric that we're going to look at. But what's an interesting metric that's we're paying more and more attention to is the returns. So right now our lockers are enabled for pickup. But this year, we're going to turn on the feature where you now, Chris, will be able to go and return a package. So you will now be able to take your package. If it has a label on it, you can go to the locker, scan the label, and then you'll be able, a door will pop open, you place it in, and the courier collects it at the end of the day. So I think from a strategy perspective, it increases occupancy rate, but also the convenience for pickup and drop off.
Got it. So returns and missed shipments, or what was the phrase you used? Yeah. Missed shipments and returns are two of the leading indices for you guys to determine where to place lockers. That's good. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Customers can also, we have a lot of big retailers that are integrated with our network. So when, and let's say, or Chris, you go to an online checkout, it'll ask you if you want home delivery or do you want an alternate address to go pick up. you can select a Purolator location, and on that list will be our lockers, amongst all of our other access points as well. So that's another way customers can interact with us.
Well, and Laurie, you're a logistics company. You guys have been doing this for almost 60 years. I'm curious what advice you would have for the retailers and brands that might be listening to this too. Like, how should they be thinking about kind of setting up these logistics points, both, the ones that we were talking about in these rural communities, but then also in urban communities? What are the kind of like key things that they should be thinking about as they're determining like how and where to set these up?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think being able to offer customers solutions, so not just delivery, but also pickup. So I think, a lot of people get busy, they're not at home. So can the big retailers offer that opportunity for not just home delivery, but an alternate location to pick up? I also think it also depends on paying attention to the areas, the condos and apartment buildings. Those are very difficult for us to deliver to, believe it or not.
Right.
So, people are not home, buzzer codes, and a lot of the concierge are getting flooded with parcels. So, understanding where their customers live, providing an easy return solution. There's a direct correlation to customer loyalty and the ease of returns. One thing that we've been very focused on is offering, package-free returns to customers when they come into our stores. Can they enable their customers with a QR code to print their label? Because not everyone has a printer at home. So those are kind of the things that they really should think about. And that's what I'm thinking about, honestly. As a consumer, I'm a big online shopper. And I want speed. I want the package there delivered in a timely fashion. I think everyone's expecting that now, no matter where you live, right, Chris? Remote or in the city. So, it's changing.
Right. So yeah, I'm curious, Ann and I being retailers ourselves, like I'm curious and double clicking into that a little bit more. Like, let's say I'm a retailer. I'm curious, I'm actually curious as I ask this question, like how it matters depending on what size of retailer you are, or if it's the same stepwise process for both. Like, you mentioned integrating with the website, for example, like that's one thing, but like, say I'm a retailer, I come to you and say, I want to get closer to my customer from a last mile perspective. I want to be within 3 miles. I like that idea. I like that concept. What's the first thing I should do? What's the one foot I should put in front of the other to start to make that happen? Is it integrating with you guys online to then put your full range of pickup points, on display for their consumers, or, unwrap that for me, I guess.
We've got a big focus for us is small, medium businesses that are starting out. They're wanting, they want that premium service. They want to provide their customers, whether it's a small base or it's growing, whatever it is, the opportunity to either pick up a package or have it delivered to their home. So they still have the same services, Chris, it's just on a smaller scale. So they don't do a full integration with us, but they are able to interact with our online shipping software. So there's depends on your big or small. Sometimes we provide customers with systems if they're a lot larger, but it's very easy for small businesses to interact with us and start building their business, especially cross-border. If they have questions with customs, we're very detailed with them and helping them along the way.
And do they even have to go through the process of that? Like, Laurie, like I want it to be available in lockers. I want it to be available in your partner locations, or does that just come with the territory and say working with someone like you?
It depends on the size. A lot of our customers will integrate our locations at the point of checkout. Others will ask the customer where they want it delivered to. And a lot of our customers will give the address of an alternate location. So that's one way around it as well.
Okay.
But if you go on our online shipping system right now, Chris, and you want to create a shipment, you can put in your postal code and it'll say, here are the 10 closest locations for pickup. So we can also, they can do that as well.
Got it.
Laurie, I'm curious, you mentioned that you also work, or this is an option available for small and medium-sized businesses as well, all the way up to the Michaels and Staples of the world. What kind of traffic are they seeing, or what kind of results have those retailers seen? Because I think that that's another big thing that's not talked about as
Yes.
often, is that, the convenience that you're offering of, giving them an alternate touch point or pickup
Yeah.
point or return point, when they aren't, it's in front of a place that they're going day to day, or they
Yeah.
make a weekly trip to. How
Yeah.
does that kind of play into the advantages that that you're seeing, or that some of your customers are seeing?
Well, customers want convenience. That's what's really driving them. So when we're able to
Yeah.
offer them many more locations, like the Michaels, the Staples, to your point, and they're already going into the community to go pick up groceries or whatever. So it's a huge convenience for them. And what's really interesting for our partners, it increases foot traffic for them, right? So we're driving customers that may not necessarily be going into Michaels. But now that they're there, how do you turn that around? And a lot of times people end up buying from the host business. So yeah, and the customers can select, because they could go to Michael's to drop off, Staples, Saputo, so it's really up to them. Maybe tomorrow I'll go to Staples, but the next day I need to go to Michael's to buy something. So it's really driving that convenience. It's changing, it's putting it into the consumer, allowing them to make the choice. So not forced to go to,
Yeah, I love that, because I think that so often we think of a store as the confine of, one Michael's store or one Staples store. And this is kind of like bringing that option of all of these stores, and the convenience of having multiple stores, which really is what's driving some people to malls in some cases. You have multiple online returns to do, but that experience can happen in front of one store that's, within 3 miles of my house or 3 kilometers of my house, versus, having to drive to 15 different points across town. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right?
So Laurie, I have to ask you then, do you get into the network design angles of that too, in terms of like, when you start to pick your partners, like here are the partners that are, a part of different trip occasions for the end consumer, to say, okay, to Anne's point, like, maybe I want the grocery store, in this certain area because of the amount of trip frequency they have, but I want to complement that with the office supply store. Is that go into the whole process? I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We do take that into consideration in some markets. So we do look at that. And so just like Michael's and Staples, they're also a customer of ours. So not only have they partnered with us to become an agent for us, but they ship with us, right? So they've been a Purolator client for such a long time. So it's a really nice way to make that relationship even stickier. But yeah, it depends on where the market gaps are, Chris, and then also the density on volume that we take a look at. But it's really interesting how it's mapping out across Canada and allowing customers to go. They're making the decision on where to go, and we're going to continue to grow. So we want to get to 2,500 access locations by the end of 2023.
Wow. And you have how many again right now? How many, just for perspective?
1,770 today, and we're growing every month.
Okay, so almost, not quite double, but almost double, for a quick back of the envelope math while I'm on a webinar with you. But that's significant.
I'll take your math.
Yeah, that's a significant increase, though, when you talk about, what you're talking about really is enlightening or enlivening omnichannel capabilities throughout Canada. That makes a ton of sense.
But I think it's needed. I think customers want it. I think the volumes can continue to grow. Remember, we have many different solutions. So it's not just about a physical store. We've got, the drop boxes, the kiosks, the lockers. So there's many different solutions to help us grow to 2,500. So that's the exciting part that my team's working on.
Well, that was what struck me the most of all the statistics you said today, which was, going back to the lockers, like 11% of the locker activity is happening after traditional hours. That means 1 in 10 consumers is finding the need to make that type of pickup or potentially return down the line to that size and degree. That's kind of crazy when you think about it, that many people are wanting to shop this after hours. And are you seeing that number continue to move up too? Like it is.
Yeah. So what's interesting is when we first put up the lockers, there's that learning where customers are coming in and trying to understand the locker, they're learning it. And I think once they get very comfortable with it, that's when we're starting to see a spike in customers coming in after hours, because not everyone works like 9 to 5 or 9 to 8, right? We service a lot of technicians, on-road technicians. We throw all of their packages into the locker. They're able to get access to it at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they can start their day earlier. So there's a lot of value added benefits, in my opinion, in kind of pushing that strategy forward. But yeah, Chris, I was fascinated too.
I think especially when we're talking about the labor required to operate these stores too.
Yes.
I mean, you think about trying to find somebody to staff these stores and being able to now extend the hours or be a little bit more flexible with the hours of operation when somebody is actually, you know, manning the store and helping people with packages. I think that's the unlock for me here too, is that, and for, I think the retailers listening, is that you have the ability for somebody to do that whenever it's convenient for them, get the product back in your hands as a retailer more quickly, and not be kind of held to the banker's hours like you're talking about, Laurie.
Yeah, no, and it's important, right? Like the receiver, the consumer will look more favorably if they have more options that are going to match their timeline, right? It's not always going to be, like you said, the banker's hours. And so what's also interesting from our perspective, we found the minute we put these lockers up outside of our corporate stores, our employees, the customer satisfaction and NPS went up. So, and one of the reasons why is because we got rid of the lineups inside the store, and the customers coming in to ship out packages, paying by debit or credit, like personal shipments, the employees spent more time with them. They weren't so rushed, right? Because all of the pickups were happening outside the store. So it's an interesting dynamic to see what's going on in those locations.
Yeah, it's a great point. Same dynamic probably happened with curbside pickup in general. Like,
100%.
Like, it's just freeing everybody up to do everything that everybody wants to do more. And allows
people, I mean, your point is a good one, Chris, in that we talk about how convenience is mostly related to pickup. Like, it was always about how do I get my things on the same terms or on my terms when I want to, how I want to, but now it's thinking about the reverse logistics piece of that too. Like, how do I get to return things? And I'm making decisions about where I'm shopping based on what the returns process looks like too on the other side of that.
You got it.
And the return before work, I'm just going to say, it feels like a no-brainer at some point down the line in the future, like before 8 a.m., the return on the way to the office seems like a no-brainer. But your point, Ann, about this being a way to deal with staffing issues is huge. Like, because you're not going to want to staff people before hours, and then you can't even staff people during the regular hours, which this is still accessible towards. So, all right. Well, Laurie, you can tell we're getting geeked out by this conversation, probably a little too much, which is our signature at Omni Talk. But I gotta set the record straight with you today. You actually set a record with us on the show here as being the longest tenured person at any one company that we have ever interviewed. Now, I'm not going to share how long. Yes.
Is that true?
Yes, 100% it is. Yes.
Wow.
I've done the math. I've done the research. Longest tenured person at any one company. So I got to ask you, because I don't get this chance a lot. Ann and I don't get this chance a lot. So as you look back on everything you've learned during that tenure, that time, amid all this talk of digital transformation, as we've been kind of peppering the edges with in this conversation here today, what is the one lesson that you would share with the audience as your final parting thought or final parting words?
Okay, well, Chris, first of all, I don't mind telling the viewers, I've been with Purolator 29 years. It'll be 30 coming up in January. So, I mean, I started off in the stores, right? So I live and breathe Purolator. But so I would say, honestly, over the years, speed and convenience, it trumps everything. Speed, convenience, and flexibility, Chris. So what I've really noticed the change is you need to move quickly. You don't really have a lot of time to sit around and analyze and take a look at what we could do in the future. You need to act now. And I'm very comfortable with progress over perfection. Let's get something out there. Let's test it. Let's, fail fast. But if it works, tweak it and continue to roll it out. So that's kind of been our strategy over the last few years, and it's working really well for us.
And I'm curious, I want to ask you one more follow-up on that, because I feel like the industry sometimes conflates those two words together, speed and convenience. They use them synonymously. But I feel like what we've been talking about throughout this conversation has actually been more about the value of convenience relative to speed. Speed maybe being a part of that,
Yeah.
but convenience being separate from speed. How do you separate those two things in your mind for the audience?
Yeah, speed is, I guess, the speed of getting a package, right? So how quickly we can get to Purolator and get your package delivered to you. We talked about the reach across Canada.
Right.
The speed of service. So when I think of self-serve technology, that's fast, right? I'm in and out. I don't need to wait in line or talk to an associate. So from my perspective, that also means speed.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I differentiate the two. The 24/7, I think, adds to some speed. Again, just quickly. I know I'm a self-serve person. I love going in and using self-serve, so it's fast.
Right. And the convenience being that it's available or the options are there whenever you want them, right?
Yes,
so that when
and
you
the
choose to
location.
take it, it's going to be really fast for you. That's the speed side of that.
Yep, and you have a choice, right? Of
Yep.
where you want to go, where you want to shop.
100%. 100%. All right. Well, hey, Laurie, that was awesome. That was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
That was a fun conversation. Got to learn a lot too, as we were talking like angles I've never thought about, like Anne's staffing point and then the network creation of across different trip types and whatnot. But if people wanted to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about Purolator, like what's the best way for them to do that?
You know what, Chris, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Very approachable. I can help you out, or go onto our website. Check out our website and purolator.com. We have our corporate communications listed on there. You can reach out to those folks as well, but we're here to answer any questions.
Awesome. There you go. There I have it. Someone been at the company 29 years, Omni Talk audience saying, hit me up on LinkedIn. More than willing to field your questions and answer anything that she can. That's awesome. All right, Laurie. Well, I think that about concludes our conversation. Thanks to Laurie from Purolator for sitting down with us today. Thanks for everyone for your awesome engagement throughout the course of this conversation as well. And for anyone that joined us live on LinkedIn, as always, on behalf of Laurie, Anne, and myself, be careful out there.